you know that Bitcoin uses as much energy as some entire countries? Bitcoin has a massive network of miners called ASICs that require a lot of energy to mine and secure the Bitcoin network. So, for Bitcoin to be successful, it's critical to have access to cheap and reliable energy. That's why miners are moving in flocks to Texas and running their mining operations off of natural gas wells, wind turbines, solar farms, and on-grid applications. But up to now, there hasn't been a place for Bitcoin miners and energy producers to connect with each other. That's why Digital Wildcatters is bringing everyone to the energy capital of the world, Houston, Texas, for 2 days of network and learning at the premier mining event, Empower. Maybe you're an experienced miner or energy producer that's looking for partnerships, or maybe you're new to the space and you want to learn and get your foot in the door. There's going to be content and opportunities for people from all different backgrounds. March 30th to 31st, Houston, Texas, Empower. Get more information at digitalwildcatters.com.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Oil and Gas Startups Podcast. It's just me, Colin, Frack Slap. We don't have Jake today. Jake got double booked and had to run downtown, but it's all good. We got my friend John Davies here today, which, John, I want to say, we just met, and you have a very world's most interesting man kind of appeal to you. You got some really interesting stories, so I'm interested to get into today's episode and find out, because I don't have a clue what you do. I don't know anything about you. I'm just going into this blind. And so first, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and who you are and why you're here today?
Well, we're here because we work in the industry and because you have the world's coolest podcast program. So they're so fun. They're just fun to watch. I'm not blowing smoke, but it's really good. But I was promised both you and Jake, so I'm not sure if I'm going to stay.
Oh, no. So we're not going to get the 5-star review.
I'm just kidding. No. So we work in the energy field from a unique point of view. That is communications.
Okay.
So we deal with an industry that is painfully shy about communicating.
Yeah.
And because of that reason, they get beaten up like crazy.
Yeah.
And so we come in and help them deal with that. So what we basically do, we're a public affairs firm.
Okay.
And it has a very special name. Davies.
There you go.
Yeah.
How'd you come up with that?
My parents came up with it, actually. My great-grandfather who came over from Wales, he came up with it. So what we do is we empower energy companies, and we empower them by uncovering and sharing their most persuasive and factual stories.
Yeah.
And we do that to move the public and leverage that public support to influence public policy. And in doing so, we get projects approved. We stop stop movements like gas bans.
Yeah.
We get LNG terminals, power plants, pipelines, you name it, and we get approved. We do a lot in natural gas.
Yeah.
And we do some in oil and gas. So we're the guys that go out there and communicate and try to get something done.
All right. Questions are already starting to
Let's
bubble
go.
up in my mind.
Let's see if I can answer one.
I mean, this is a big talking point for us at Digital Wildcatters, right? Is storytelling and communication and really putting characters and faces to the energy industry, because it's an industry that really has not done that at all previously, right? And I think it's really interesting because you look at like oil and gas companies specifically, they never really had to sell. They didn't really have a customer. They didn't really have anyone that they had to sell to,
Right.
Demand is very inelastic.
Right. And the states that they produced in were states that understood and loved them.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're in foreign water territory where they're like, oh, we got a story tell, and it's tough,
It's really tough.
It's tough. And, I think Digital Wildcatters has done a really good job of telling stories and putting a face to the industry and kind of being a bridge between traditional energy and new energy sources and educating the general public. But I'm really interested to talk to you and hear, how you guys help energy companies do this. First, before we get into that though, tell me a little bit about your background. Did you come from communications, or did you come from energy, or how did you get to where you are today?
So communications.
Okay.
So I've been doing this type of work for about 35, 40 years.
Okay.
Before that, we did some advertising, we did some PR, did some marketing.
Yeah.
And I just started specializing. And it sort of became an industry. Public affairs, issue management became an industry.
Yeah.
And so I was on the forefront of it. So I have to think back. I had a lady friend who I was dating in my late 20s. And I had dinner with her parents, and they were very successful. They owned one of the biggest commercial construction companies in the Southeast. They were intimidating. And the mother looked at me at dinner one night, said, "So what would be a big challenge you'd like to take on that would really challenge you?" I said, "I'd like to represent the oil industry on a big political campaign in Santa Barbara." Okay, so Santa Barbara, the founding place of the modern environmental movement.
Yeah.
Lots of oil, lots of offshore oil. Well, fast forward 18, 20 months, I'm hired as almost a sole proprietor. Like I had one assistant and hired another person to work with me to run a campaign to stop a ballot measure that would kill the oil industry in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And, we have all these, the first thing they said when they hired me, they said, "Now you need to pick one of the other two finalists to do it with you because you're too small, but we want you to be doing it." And so, I picked a really good firm. We did it together, and we took a campaign that we started 30, 35 points behind, and we won by 30, 35 points.
Oh, wow.
And
Covered a lot
in
of
Santa
ground.
Barbara.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. We
Yeah.
tipped over the deal. So it was a great challenge, and that sort of changed my total trajectory. I decided more work in the public affairs end, more difficult issues. So, we sort of look at ourselves as someone that can play with very controversial, very difficult issues that are
Mhm.
defining.
Yeah.
The challenge for the energy industry, oil and gas, is it's only been defining recently.
Yeah.
So they got to tell their story. And I love that you tell stories. I mean, I just spoke at a national conference, a natural gas conference, and I unpacked the Pixar code. And do
Yeah.
you know the Pixar code?
Yeah.
And well, I did it. And I did Nemo,
Mm-hmm.
about Marlin, widower, his only son.
So why don't
goes
you
off.
dive into that? Because I know about, Pixar's templates and
Yeah.
how they storytell, but if you can dive into that a little
Yeah,
bit.
I will a
for
little bit.
someone that-
Let me tell you how we get to that point,
Yeah.
though. So storytelling on its own is taking what you know, packaged well, and then doing it. But so how we get to a story is we got to find the messages. So we have a very unique research tool that we use. And it's something that most people in our society don't do anymore. We listen. So we literally have a tool where we call people. We'll call 25 to 100 people. We'll spend an hour on the phone with them. We take copious notes, and then 4 or 5 of us read every word. We come up with findings, never more than 9, usually 5 to 7, of what it all means. And it's usually incredibly simple, and it's game changing. And then we take that and we turn it into what are the greatest dangers, what are the biggest opportunities, and what do we come to the table with as a strength. The dangers being something we've got to overcome to succeed.
Yeah.
The opportunities are things we got to take advantage of to succeed, and the strengths are what we build upon. And so we take that, and then we go through a message formulation process. And that process is, we call it value-based message, is we get into it and we tell their story before we get into a story format by saying, what do we need to acknowledge about? Everything we do on the face of the earth, touching anything with the earth, has an impact. So what do we need to acknowledge? What happens when you acknowledge? You build instant credibility and integrity.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to tell you something that's wrong with me first, we're going to get to accept one another pretty quickly. You're going to tell me something, all of a sudden we have it. So we acknowledge, and then we immediately contrast. So we acknowledge impact, and then we contrast the impact of acting and moving with a contrast to doing nothing. And then it's boom. Then now you're working towards a message. Then we take that and we embrace the whole idea. And when you embrace the whole idea, you get into the stories. And then we end with bridging to the economics. Now think about how most people start. They start with economics.
Yeah.
And you end by confessing that you have a problem. So you end with the acknowledge, and at every step, your credibility drops. With ours, at every step, your credibility grows. And then we turn that into a story that we need to tell. And the story is simple, and it doesn't have to be crazy. It's just a story. Think about the story of natural gas, where we spend the time. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's the greatest story of American ingenuity. It's the greatest story of environmental and economic improvement. in history, right?
Yeah.
I mean, have we ever had anything else happen like that?
Yeah, no, that's I was actually thinking the other day, just we got in this big Twitter war a few days ago, me and some other oil and gas guys versus some
Bring me on.
climate folks. Yeah, you need to get on Twitter, man. It gets rowdy over there. But I was just kind of reflecting on that, and I was like, it's so crazy that oil and gas is demonized when it's one of the greatest technological revolutions of mankind.
Without it, we're living in the dark ages. We're using a long drop toilet.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
But that's how bad the industry has been at storytelling, is that they've lost the narrative.
Well,
in
they
showing,
haven't.
You think they haven't?
Here's the secret. Well, oil has. Let's separate oil and gas. And if you notice API, what they say now, they don't say oil and gas. You know how
what do they say?
They say natural gas and oil.
Oh, natural gas and oil.
And I think there's a number of reasons why, and I'll share with you the numbers. Natural gas is very popular, so I think that's one. The other is, I think when people say oil and gas, they think oil and gasoline. They don't think oil and natural gas.
You know what? That actually just clicked with me about 2 months ago, because
you should call me before.
Yes,
it was about 2 years ago for me. So it wasn't like all of a sudden when I saw that API changed, I'm like, oh.
Well, no, some lady posted on Twitter, this tweet went viral because she's like, I've grown up my entire life in Texas, and she's like, I always thought oil and gas meant oil and gasoline.
Yeah.
And that was someone that grew up in Texas. She had and that clicked with me. I was like, oh man, that's how much we have to boil it down.
We do. Yeah. And here's the deal. Just talking natural gas. America supports and actually loves natural gas.
We love natural gas.
We do.
Yeah.
I mean, as a nation.
Yeah.
Now, 10 years ago, we asked them, well, my favorite answer is, what's good about natural gas? You know what the number one answer was?
What was that?
It's natural. So I decided the coal industry should play off that and start talking about coal as organic.
Yeah.
But they say it's natural. And it's clean. And it goes on. Today, they say it's cleaner.
Yeah.
It's not clean anymore. It's cleaner.
Yeah.
But so we're always doing public opinion surveys nationwide, just for our clients, but also for ourselves.
Yeah.
Just to have the numbers. So a recent study we did, and this was a study about decarbonization and what the industry needed to do and how we need to communicate it. And so we asked people, do you have a positive or a negative view of natural gas? Guess the positive number.
Positive number? When was this?
November.
25% positive.
Okay, positive view, 41% very positive.
Okay.
62% total positive. Really? Negative, 8.5. Think about it. And we run from it. So the deal is, we have this amazing story to tell.
Yeah.
And really what our job is to tell the American public why they love natural gas.
Yeah.
We don't need to convince them. They already believe it. So we have a generational issue.
Yeah.
As the generations get younger, there's less support. That means we got work to do. But people love natural gas. And when you look at some of the movements going against natural gas, like gas bans.
Yeah.
So we did a study on gas bans last year, so mid-year, so pretty fresh. And so we started by asking, do you support, we see what, some communities, municipalities and communities and states are thinking about banning natural gas for use in homes and businesses, and doing so gradually with these small bans, blah, blah, blah. Do you support or oppose? The opposed number? I won't make you guess again. 74%. And then we listed all the reasons to oppose and asked them, more likely, less likely. Amazing reasons. The economics, the environmental improvements. Ask for another vote. We get to 77. We then list all the reasons to support a gas ban. And then we do another vote. We get to 73. So basically we go nowhere. But when you start at 74%, so all over America, we're banning natural gas. As I'm doing this study and talking to people about it, I get a call at home at dinner. And it comes up on the home phone, which I don't know where it is. It just some voice comes out of somewhere. We never use it. And it's someone calling, asking me to go to a public hearing to help Santa Barbara ban natural gas.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck? And then I get pinged by one of my clients, someone in Texas with a Texas utility that we work with, saying, what's going on? Why haven't you fixed that? So, but we're passing these horrible measures
Yeah.
that impact the environment drastically
Yeah.
and impact the economy. I mean, getting rid of natural gas is like the biggest environmental mistake we can make.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's counterproductive to climate goals, right?
Yeah.
And I was asked to give a lunch and learn talk to this legal firm. And so they had attorneys over in the US and Europe. And I was like, what am I going to talk about with these guys? And anyways, my topic was that I believe natural gas is the transition fuel of the future. And, I started talking to these attorneys and I was like, look, it's like natural gas burns 50% less CO2 than coal. I said, it's abundant, it's cheap, yada, yada, yada. Most people's complaint is methane, rogue emissions, but we have the technology today to mitigate rogue emissions 100%. It's not a problem.
We're going to get rid of them. And there's some great groups that are helping the industry do it.
Next 5 years,
methane,
it's going down. And anyways, I'm talking, and one of the attorneys over in the UK, he says, I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and you're saying, okay, natural gas burns less CO2 than coal. He's like, the UK likes to tout that we've driven down our CO2 emissions. He's like, but I'm sitting here looking at the data. He's like, we went from coal to natural gas.
That's why.
Yeah. That's
and
why.
Like we have 25% decrease in the US.
He's like, now we're going through this energy crunch, and going from natural gas to renewables doesn't seem like it's going to be as easy. Give me 20 minutes to lay that story out, and people got it. People got it, and they understood
because as a rule, so what you're facing when you have those conversations is either a flat road, not uphill, or downhill. Mm-hmm. And as we started, the industry doesn't reach out. So we were asked to fight a statewide gas ban in a state. A client had hired us. They thought they were going to face something in a year or so. Mm-hmm. So they hire us last November, December. We get started. January, we get a call from their VP of GR saying, I think we got a gas ban in the legislature. Fast forward, put together a coalition. They're an amazing company, a lot of good friends. Coalition included every minority business organization, and included African-American social organizations. It included AARP, mm-hmm. as well as builders and contractors and all that. Well, what happened is the author of the bill was really, really weak, but it was there playing possum. The real people behind it were serious. Fast forward, it starts to be a war. The governor blows up at us in the state because we're fighting it.
Yeah.
And so we've got 2 months. It's a sprint. We killed it in the first committee, never came up for a vote. We targeted every member of the committee and their best friends in the legislature. It became the most opposed bill in this state during the legislative session. Okay, think about it. I mean, everyone says everyone hates oil and gas. So the most opposed bill in the legislative session was a bill that would ban natural gas. And all we had to do is organize it.
Yeah.
And get the story out. So
just
the story
took a little bit of effort.
It's going to cost every family $874 to get rid of natural gas if we don't have it. Yeah. And then you got to change all your equipment. And the worst thing is it kills the environment. It's a worse deal. So you talked about transition. So I like to talk about the energy transition. The energy transition is not from natural gas to renewables. I mean, number one, renewables are great. All of the above. Yeah. But everything has an impact. Mm-hmm. If Marshall McLuhan, his deal was everything has a dark side. Yeah. And so every development has a shadow. Yeah. And renewables have shadows, just like oil and gas have shadows. That's how you deal with it. So the transition is natural gas can transition to be not clean, but the cleanest. It with decarbonization, carbon sequestering, everything that can be done, that's happening, that the whole industry is embracing. Yeah. Obviously, you had Toby Rice on here. He's one of the strongest spokespersons for doing it. And he's working with every possible company to find the best way. Really impressive. Yeah. And so you do that. But the second transition is, so the U.S. has transitioned from coal to natural gas. We need to transition the rest of the world with them. We have a responsibility that we have the greenest energy source that's cost effective, that we can transition the world with it. We just got to tell our story. Yeah. I mean, you have how many times I pull out my hair. And at my age, I don't have as much hair left. And it's like, I feel like I need to grow a beard like most guys do when they get to be my age, cover up all the wrinkles. But I would pull it out because it's like, come on, let's just tell our story.
Yeah. I have a friend that runs a decarbonization account on Twitter, but he's very pro natural gas.
Yeah.
And he's like, he hits me up the other day. He's like, why do natural gas producers not hammer on the fact that nat gas is cleaner than coal? He's like, it's a no-brainer. He's like, and it's cheap and abundant and secure. He's like, how do y'all suck so bad at
why do you
telling the
think
story?
it is? It's so we represent a lot of utilities. We represent some pipeline companies. We represent. We've done a handful of LNG terminals. We got a really big one, Cove Point, in Maryland. In the state of Maryland, we got that approved. And so you work with some of these folks, and they get desperate, and they have to hire someone like us.
Yeah,
and they do it. But why? I mean, it's a fight for us to get to say something.
Yeah,
and get people to reach out. I mean, what do you think it is with the people you interview? Why are they afraid to tell their story?
Yeah, one, it's a good question because it's kind of this phenomenon that we've had with digital wildcatters where I can get high-profile people in here, and we just have a really comfortable setting where they're all right being genuine and sharing their real thoughts. It's really good. Yeah. I can't tell you why. I don't know if it's just like a cultural thing of like we're doing that, but I mean, one, I think that on a meta level, it is kind of cultural because like these guys that you bring up, like a Toby Rice or, Case Van Hoff, like these guys are starting to get out there and look like, we've gone decades of not telling our story and people are fucking tired of it. They're pissed off. And you go on Twitter, like we're demonized on Twitter.
62% of Americans have a positive image of natural gas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we ask people, do you want to increase natural gas use, keep it the same or decrease it? 71% are increase or keep the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked in some tough places. I mean, doing a big development is going to add thousands of traffic trips.
Yeah.
And you do a poll and you're at 30%.
Yeah.
And the other 65 and they're pounded on you. I mean, we don't have that fight.
Yeah.
We just got to give people the story to back up what they believe so they know why they believe what they believe. Yeah, and that's it.
You got to arm them with information and stories, right? And actually, I
don't think they believe my numbers.
I'm a little skeptical. I'd love to see the data.
I'll give it to you. That's surprising. I'll tell you what. Let's do a podcast where we just do numbers.
Just numbers.
I'll put them on the screen. We can talk through them, and I back it up with other people's numbers.
Okay, cool.
Because EY. Yeah. This is how I got started doing this. EY did the study, and they had the image of the different energy industries.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's crazy. It's crazy. And what it reminded me of is that, we have a lot of people who really, really like it. There's a lot of love, but no support. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of Bernie Sanders during the primaries. Yeah. I mean, Bernie Sanders had a lot of love. I mean, the numbers of support.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the people that loved him, the millennials, the younger, they didn't vote. So they love him. In the New York State primary, they love him. You look at the numbers, they're, 50% wanted him, including my son is a big Bernie fan. Yeah. And then, but they don't turn out to vote.
Yeah.
And so what we have is we have people.
Doesn't matter how much you love
we got to get people right. It's love and no respect. So you got to get people to come out and deal with it. And that's a challenge.
Did you see this video that we produced with EQT showing the story of the fourth generation dairy farmer?
It's like unbelievable, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy. That video, it's 300, 400,000 views in the first month. Like that's reaching that's going to be a 1 million view video here soon. And it's because it's a good story.
Well, it's a great story. And Toby's a good storyteller to be part of it.
And
he's not afraid to get out there. His letter to Elizabeth Warren.
It was good, right?
Well, it's like, if I could do a backflip, I would have done too. Well, because it's a phenomenal
I've been telling Toby that for a long time. I was like, dude, you need to be a leader and a face for the industry.
He is, and his guys are. So at the conference, I presented some data and we talked about story. His two people there, first off, they did a couple of shout outs to me when they were speaking. So I absolutely love them.
Nice.
Because that's the main reason to love someone. But they were really strong, like him, on the issues. And so, but I like, that's what the industry needs to be.
Yeah.
EQT is leading the charge. Don't let that get away from you. We might lose you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my thing is, for so long, this industry, you could be reclusive and you didn't have to put yourself out there,
Right.
but those times are gone. And the narrative, I don't like calling it the narrative because it kind of seems like, we're trying to manipulate
Exactly.
the story.
And
But
story does a little bit too to me.
yeah.
We have to tell our story.
Yeah.
And I did the Nemo story, and then I did a story about American natural gas.
Yeah.
And my character wasn't Nemo. It was Blue, BLU. And the avatar was me.
Yeah.
and I did not want to do it, but my team made me do it. And then we did the story of international
Yeah.
natural gas.
Yeah.
And the stories are great. So, but it's sort of sharing who we are. It's not a story. It's simple. It's so simple.
Yeah.
And the data backs us up.
Yeah.
I mean, look at
that's
the metric ton
it's not a
reduction
narrative, it's a
of
story.
CO2.
Yeah.
We've gone down. We're minus 900 metric tons. At the same time period, China's up 4,700 metric tons.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but what does that tell you?
That's what, the big Twitter battle I told you about this previous weekend was some guy from biotech industry up in New York made a comment about oil man camps for hotbeds for rape and we're the, like the scum of the earth and all this. And I asked him first, have you ever been to a man camp? And then
No.
I kind of let it go, but then I came back and I just started tearing this guy apart because it started pissing me off. And I was like, just the, blatant disrespect for people in the oil and gas industry and the industry as a whole when we've done so much good. And I said, ultimately, the problem with the world, if you don't like oil and gas, it's a demand problem. And oil and gas companies are supplying the demand that there is for hydrocarbons. If you don't fucking like it, go do something, use something else. Yeah. Wean off fossil fuels and do whatever you need to do, but
you're never going to wean off.
Jake here with Digital Wildcatters. Want to let you know about some of the big events that we have coming up. First up, we got Energy Tech Night, February 16th here in the Houston Heights Theater. If you've never been to one of the Energy Tech Nights, you really don't know what you're missing. We have a handful of companies that'll be presenting their tech live on the big screen, followed by live Q&A. We'll have tons of good food, drinks, and good people, and it's always a great time, so be sure to check that out. Bitcoin mining. It's all the rage these days, so we're looking to bring Bitcoin mining to the energy capital of the world with our Empower Energizing Bitcoin Conference, March 30th and 31st here in Houston. We're bringing together energy, mining, finance, other professionals in the city that powers the world. We're shutting down the streets in Houston for an iconic 2-day event at Eighth Wonder Brewery, where you get to learn and network with energy producers, capital groups, miners, and other builders in space. If you want to join us at Energy Tech Night or at Empower, you can go snag some tickets at digitalwildcatters.com.
Because the day we stop burning fossil fuels for internal combustion engines, let's say we go all that EV, and we get a lot of lithium, and we do that, we don't burn it. Let's say that we don't use it anywhere else. At the end of the day, oil and gas is in everything we do. I mean, look around this room.
Yeah.
I mean, petroleum products, we can't do a wind farm or a solar farm without petroleum.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it, the makeup of a barrel of oil, say that we did go from internal combustion engines to EVs, that's going to make a huge dent in oil demand. But the thing a lot of people don't understand is that you're transferring emissions essentially from the tailpipe to power generation side. So hey, renewables, renewables will never.
They can't.
They'll never have 100% of the grid. They can't. But also,
we don't have enough land, enough copper, enough lithium,
but that's
enough cobalt.
One, there's not enough lithium for batteries for EVs and for commercial batteries or renewables. So hey, look, you need natural gas and oil for power generation. You need nuclear, and you made a comment about energy I'm getting tired of even talking about energy transition.
No, the transition is to cleaning the world.
Yeah.
And the real transition, which we all need to start doing, is the transition is from natural gas being cleaner to being the cleanest and cleanest and cleanest as we get to a net zero moment. I mean, natural gas utilities have the opportunity now with renewable natural gas, and we'll have it with hydrogen, to be net carbon zero. And it's not, it's a day away. In the big picture of things. And we just got to tell the story. So one of the things that we talk about it, and I've watched a lot of your shows and all the time, it's like going to a conference and, every panel's like, yeah, and the public's opposed and I can't handle the public opposed and we can't get it done and we're delayed and this happened and that happened. And it's like, yeah. And then I speak about what we do and how we get it done. It's not hard. First, the message is really straightforward. We just got to find the message that actually resonates with a regional or local group.
Mhm.
I mean, it's always different in how you relate it.
Yeah.
And that's what the research does. So our whole deal is we do stuff. We listen first. And then we share and relate to the other's dreams and fears, not our dreams and fears, their dreams and fears. And then we get out there and we really engage and have a relationship. We tell the story and we touch it. We tell it through the grassroots, still the best means. Old school. If I talk to you on the phone, I send you something in mail, talk to you on the phone, and you say you're with me, you're more likely to show up at a hearing than any other person. If you say you like me on social media, 1 out of 2,000 will do something. If you say you like me on the phones, 20 out of 100 will do something.
Yeah.
And then we do the traditional media, because sometimes you got to talk to the local paper.
Yeah.
They need some money too.
Yeah.
And that gets them thinking, doing natural gas power plants. We go into a local community and meet with the editorial board. And on the way out, we go meet with the publisher, shake his hand, say hello, just say, hey, can we meet some of your advertising people next week?
Yeah.
And we start doing a series of ads. Well, who reads it? The publisher, the editorial page editor, and they love us because we're doing it. But you do traditional, then we do the social and the digital. But it's got to have a base of a grassroots.
Yeah.
And with that, we've done projects where the night we're hired, we go to a hearing and they lose 5-0. The natural gas power plant in Pennsylvania. And we're like, okay, well, that was the quickest contract we've ever had. We didn't get to do anything except to go to hearing. My guy that went to the hearing, he goes, well, they lost 5-0. I don't know what happened. Well, they screwed up on the posting and what they did, and they had to do it. So they had to start over.
Yeah.
So a good place to start from, right? Fast forward, our team is in the big parade in the local town. It's a very Catholic, Italian, old school community.
Yeah.
And we're looking for a message, the lead on the message. This is what I talk about. So this community felt that the state and the feds were going to make the decision. And they're old school. They're like, why don't we get a choice? That was a comment we heard over and over in the research. So it was a town of Jessup, outside of Scranton. Our headline and everything was Jessup's choice. And of course, our client is like, you got to be kidding me. We can't tell them it's their choice, but it is. And so we get it out there. We end up getting overwhelming support. We end up having one of the planning commissioners who voted against it, the 5-0, say it was at a workshop, say it's the biggest mistake I've made as a planning commissioner. I truly didn't understand what we're doing here.
Oh, yeah.
That's and it was cool. The power plant was going to be on a site of a coal storage and a little coal mountain that had been removed. So think about the irony of that.
Yeah.
But you got to get out there, tell your story, get out. We got out. We went door to door. People are shutting the door in our face. We go back. We talk to them more. We keep sharing, keep pushing stuff in the media.
Yeah.
And they come around. They're like, oh, you know what? We get it. Keep doing workshops. Keep doing it. They get it. And,
one question I get fairly often, like we gave this talk at Namoga with a bunch of oil and gas producers in New Mexico. And one of the questions from the audience was, how do we tell our story to people outside the industry? Because often what happens is, we're at conferences or events and, it's just preaching to the choir. We're just in an echo chamber.
Exactly.
And, when I listen to you talk, one thing that I find that's interesting that you guys do is you do the things that are unscalable. And this is something that I like a lot. Like you're like, hey, we're getting on the phones with people.
Yeah.
We're going door to door. We're sending, pieces of mail. And
we do, now webinars through Zoom.
Yeah.
We invite the whole town.
Yeah.
And they can't beat you up on that because
my thing is like people always, they try to think about how they can do things at scale. I'm like, just go talk to one person.
No,
and
one
then
at a
talk
time.
to another.
Yeah.
You know, I took
Well, yeah, but you personally, I mean, if you work for a utility or you're a producer or your pipeline company, go have a conversation with your neighbors.
yeah, you know, I talked to I'm really fascinated with drilling with lasers, and linked up with a scientist up in Seattle, and just you know, just kind of throwing my crazy idea at him.
Yeah.
And he's like, drilling with lasers, like, what do you, I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, drill oil and gas. And he knew nothing about oil
Yeah.
and gas. You know, he's from Seattle. And, you know, I started like talking to him about it, and he's like getting really interested. And this is right. This was last year, right when Keystone XL
Right.
permits were getting pulled. And he sends me an article. He's like, hey, is this true that even though they banned the pipeline, that they're still going to transport oil on rail car, which could be even more risky environmentally? And I was like, yeah, 100%. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. And so that was like
Or they're going to put it on a tanker and
Yeah.
send it to Canada.
yeah.
And then we're going to get our oil on a tanker from someone else.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, we like,
they go, yeah.
we
how's that?
like shipping hydrocarbons across the world. I
Yeah,
mean,
when we don't need
that's
to.
like, if you look at the Northeast right now, I wrote a big thread about this the other day about, you know, Northeast going through an energy crunch, and they import LNG from Africa and, you know, different parts of the world. And it's like, you got the Marcellus right there, 200
When
miles in your
New
backyard.
York's banned it.
Yeah.
I
New
mean,
York's banned. Yeah. Like,
and so and you know, we're working an LNG project that will use Marcellus, and that'll go to Europe. But you're right. I mean, it's like how insane is it that we have the cleanest, most affordable fuel that is really productive with renewable,
yeah.
with wind and solar,
Yeah.
that we can do it together. We can do battery storage. We do the whole thing together, and we can do renewable natural gas. We can do hydro. I mean, and we have this infrastructure that we don't have to rebuild.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so we just, the thing is that we all think the public doesn't support it. The public supports it. We just need to gather them and put them to work. We prove that over and over.
We're going to do a follow-up episode sometime. We're going to hop on a Zoom call. Where do you live?
California.
You're okay. You're in California.
It's a very big pro-oil area.
Yeah.
No, but we did the campaign in one. Of course, it was
you know what's funny
in
is
the late 80s.
One of my favorite oil stories is I worked on a well right in the middle of Los Angeles. It was on a golf course right at the end of a driving range. And so we're there on a workover rig, and everyone's trying to hit us with golf balls. But yeah, it was in Brea.
Well actually did a campaign there.
Oh yeah,
to reuse those oil facilities.
Yeah,
and but so we did Beverly Hills, one of my favorite projects, for the oil company that owned the oil drilling on the Beverly Hills high school site, and Aaron Brockovich was fighting us. And we worked with the local community, the school district, the oil company, and the little local Beverly Hills newspaper, which won a Pulitzer for their coverage of uncovering the lies that Aaron Brockovich and her team were saying about oil and gas and the project. We ended up keeping it and saving it until it became uneconomical. But I mean, think about how insane that is in this world. That Beverly Hills, Southern California, has an oil facility on their high school site. They're saying that it's a cancer cluster.
Yeah. That's what that's really surprising to me. But like, you know, my stepmom's family lived 2 miles away from that well that I was working at. And they're like, we didn't even know there was an oil field here. And I get there, and major intersection, there's a pump jack right on the corner in the parking lot going up and down. It's like the people have no idea what that pump jack is and what
what's going on there.
Yeah.
Well, in California, you know, we import 60-70% of our oil.
Yeah.
And there's no pipeline.
Yeah.
So we get it all by tanker coming in. And they're trying to outlaw all California oil and gas production.
Yeah.
They're doing all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And
they're doing, I mean, like,
so what are we
they're getting rid of that? They're shutting down
what are we gonna
Diablo,
what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do for our oil? We're just gonna tanker it in from offshore. I mean, that's what we're sort of doing as a nation right now.
That's what I mean. You know, they get it out of their backyard, and then you have transmission coming from different states, and it's just ass backwards.
No, it's crazy, but I love what you guys do. I love that you get out there. I love how bold you are. I love that you give a platform to so many people to be able to tell a story. We need to continue to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know what I tell everyone is that it's an industry effort too, right? I mean,
It is.
There's thousands and
you guys are
thousands
like
of
evangelists
stories,
for the industry. That's how I look at ourselves. I speak at a lot of events and industry events. Obviously, that's how we meet potential clients. But I also speak to give them some backbone.
Yeah.
And there's one event I do every year in November, and it's the event that the first time I spoke there, it was a mic drop, and people are like blown away. I had 12, 13 minutes.
Yeah.
And so now every year I try to equal it and do something like, so this year was a Pixar story.
You had to keep raising the bar.
Yeah, I had to keep raising the bar, but, brought in some research. But, the thing is that your generation has changed trust. So, I mean, think about trust, when, think about in the days before there was a lot of, cars and trucks came pretty slow, small towns, so trust was local and a handshake. So, you borrow money, you borrow equipment, you shake hands, you pay it back. The banker comes to your house saying, come on, man, Colin, I got to help you. And then trust moved to be more institutional.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of trust being peer to peer, trust became contractual. And that, that's sort of the world we're moving out of now. Yeah. Trust now is really moved into more of a distributed trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at the Ubers, you look at Airbnb, and you look at all these crazy things. There's a great example in France and somewhat in UK called BlaBlaCar, and it's not a ride sharing. It's you get in your own car. It's like the old ride board from colleges. Hey, I'm going to Dallas this weekend. Anyone take me? Yeah. And so and they do a huge, millions of rides every month.
Yeah.
It's called BlaBlaCar.
Okay.
And so that's, they ask questions. Do you like loud music?
Yeah.
Do you smoke? Are you bringing a dog?
Yeah.
Okay. But the biggest decider of how people ride is based on the genius of the name, how much you talk.
Yeah.
So do you talk a little? Blah. Do you talk a little bit more? Blah, blah. Or do you talk a real lot? Blah, blah, blah. And that's how they'd find it. And that's what they found creates a peace with people.
There's matches. Yeah.
So BlaBlaCar. Yeah. And think about the trust, right?
Yeah.
Go to an Airbnb.
When I think about like distributed trust, like I think about Joe Rogan and how people trust individuals over institutional media. Like you just kind of talked about the evolution. It was like, a lot of trust.
Google something today that you really want to find, especially about COVID stuff. Do you want to see all sides?
Yeah.
It takes you have to.
It's very biased. Yeah.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you don't get it fed to you from different places, you can't get it. So you like a Joe Rogan information, you
that's
can't
what I
get
feel
it.
like, what Digital Wildcatters is and what that distribution of media has allowed us is like now people can come and like, we have so many people in our audience, in our community that don't come from energy or oil and gas, but they're interested in it. And they're like, hey, we know that we can get no BS takes and get good information.
Yeah. And it's really, really important.
Yeah.
That it's there's not two of me sitting here.
Yeah.
There's, your generation is thought to be against fossil fuels, against oil and gas.
Yeah.
And when people aren't, and you open up the idea and you talk about it, it's a game changer. You guys are making a great impact.
Yeah.
And it's important that we do that. Yeah. No, it's really good. When I first saw it, I was pretty excited.
We've talked a lot about like we've gone a lot into theoretical, conversation, taking over the narrative. Before we wrap this thing up, what type of, let's help your business out a little bit. And, anyone that's listening to this podcast that they need help with their communications and PR and how they craft stories or messages, or, if they need help with a project, what type of companies do you guys look to work with?
Well, so with natural gas, we work with producers, pipelines, utilities, LNG companies.
Okay.
So, we're pretty much up and down the line. And we also help out some people who are suppliers to the industry and cooperate with them. When we did a workshop in November, and I invited Project Canary because I wanted to talk about decarb from the research point of view.
Yeah.
By the way, back to your deal about the media and the government. And we asked a question is, who do you trust to give you the information about the companies decarbing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was an independent environmental group or an independent group working with a company.
Yeah.
Who do you not trust? The government and the company alone. But the government was like more than a company. People are more willing to hear the company than the government.
Had Project Canary on the podcast. I don't know if it's gone out yet, but
cool. Who'd you have on?
Dr. Anna.
Oh,
and,
yeah. That's who I spoke with. She's great. I think
she's awesome.
They're a game changer.
She's awesome. But there's a lot of people in the industry that think that it's a grift and that it's a scam. And I put her on the hot seat. She handled it fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not at all.
Handle it fantastic.
They actually did not want to do the equipment to measure and do things. Their goal was just to be the company that created the data bases and the logarithms to share with people.
Yeah, but I think, if you had an investment bank or research firm pushing Project Canary, it wouldn't have as much trust as the founder coming on the show talking to me. I'm asking a little bit of tough questions, pushing a little bit. And there's been, I've heard some stuff in the industry. This is what people think, they answer it. And that builds trust because, hey, founder was willing to come on the show, expose themselves, be genuine, authentic, and that builds trust. And so I think, and that's that distributed trust that we're talking about that you can do. Yeah. So for us, we're looking for people who want to avoid an issue. We fought a gas ban. We're working with a bunch of utilities now who are preparing to face them. So the worst way they come at you is a bunch of little ones, county by county, and they do a ban on building requirements. And you got to beat them back. You got to fight back, and the public will join you and really go. You just got to break away and make a move. I mean, the one company on the statewide ban, when they finally let us go, I mean, we talked and we talked and we talked and we prepared materials, we had content. When they finally let us take action. So I think one of the things that we do best is our research to messaging. And then second is we take action. And there's a lot of firms. We did a project in British Columbia that we're hired after they had another firm. And one of the reps was there 3 days a week in the client's office. And there were 2 file cabinets full of memos and plans. They had never implemented a thing. Yeah. You got to take action. You got to have a plan. You got to have a message and you got to go. And the plan needs to be simple. It doesn't need to be 80 pages. 100%.
I mean, in natural gas and in oil, we have a story to tell. We're working with one oil and gas company, a small independent. And when we get out in their communities and do digital and social media, and then we do quarterly studies and we hit it hard, the numbers go up. The positive numbers go up. I mean, the world's very elastic to having a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your point on taking action. I mean,
and that's what we do.
Analysis paralysis is the killer of many great
the thing
ideas.
is, are you just going to die over time?
Yeah.
Or are you going to invest some time, some money, and mostly some balls to go out there and tell your story? You got to have some balls to go tell your story.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. And I think you're starting to see a lot of people rise up to that. I mean, the Toby Rice's cases, those types of people are.
What happened to Toby Rice when they in EQT when they sent that letter?
I don't think
they got applause.
Yeah, no.
I mean people are like.
I was thinking, So I first diverted over because someone actually just sent a tweet today, not verbatim, but along the lines that it's bullshit that Elizabeth Warren could come out and demand information and scold oil companies, and then when Toby sends a letter back, just crickets. Like,
that's great, anything. Right? So that's what we want.
When you asked me like what happened, I was like, nothing happened. But no, I mean, on the other side, got a ton of support.
We need to be doing that in the local areas. Yeah, we need to do it in the regional. Every natural gas utility needs to be standing up and telling their story.
Yeah,
and the deal is, we're not fighting the uphill battle. Well, all we have to do is tell a positive story. The thing is, and this we probably need to close. I have a feeling we hit our number.
We're getting close.
Okay, you got
a couple minutes.
So much of public debate in issues like this is saying no on no. You know what I mean? So we're saying no to the no people. We're saying no to the opposition, and so. The deal is no is a 0 and a multiplication. And so if I multiply 1 times 0, what does it equal?
Yeah.
0. If I multiply 80 million times 0, it equals 0. When you go no on no, it equals no.
Yeah.
And so you got to say yes. We need to be proud and tell our story. Let's not repeat their debate. Our story is so good.
Yeah.
When we tell it, when we get out there and tell the story, hey, it's your choice to make this decision. And by the way, here's why you should say yes.
Yeah.
Here are all the good reasons.
Yeah.
Here's what's happening. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you get to go. So stop telling the opposition they're wrong and start telling the public why they need to join us.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's a game
It's a
changer
straw man,
and
right?
a policy.
You need to know what you should be actually taking action on. And
Right.
I agree with you 100%.
Well, so where we did stop the state ban, they had one hearing and they're going to have another. So the first hearing that they had a guy from NRDC that took over the hearing, and the proponent, obviously a lot of proponents had a weaker legislator, but he just took over and did the deal. And he was so effective. His background at Zoom, almost made me like laugh out loud. And he couldn't make a point.
Yeah.
He could not make a point that mattered. And, we have a bunch of Democrats, usually anti-oil and gas, who were loaded for beer. And they were like, they'd ask questions and they're subtle and they ask questions. And this guy is like, going, wait a minute, these are my people. What happened? And that's what we could do all the time.
Yeah.
We just need to be proud, as you guys are. I mean,
Yeah.
Your entire game is being proud of what you're doing.
100%.
And the industry.
And should be proud.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so proud. People say you work in the oil and gas. There's a group out there called Concerned Creatives. I don't know if you heard of it.
Is that the one that has all the creative shops sign a petition?
Exactly.
So they won't work with one
Yeah.
of the gas
And
companies?
they approached me and I go,
I thought that was awesome for digital wallcatters. It's like, okay, cool. Like if y'all need creatives, you'll come work with us. We'll help
exactly.
you out.
That's us. I mean, it's like if you need real work, and so all the big public agencies who for years have taken money from the big oil.
Yeah.
And
All of a
they're
sudden
saying no,
pulling out.
now they're
Yeah.
signing, and they're not going to do it anymore. It's like, well, first off, you did a really crappy job
Yeah.
because you assigned your junior team. You didn't let your company be proud of it because you
Yeah.
may lose Microsoft
Yeah.
and Starbucks as a client.
Yeah.
But go. I'm proud to do it. We put it
get out of here.
put it on the wall of our house. And when we do renewables, I always start by telling them that, hey, by the way, we do all energy.
All energy.
And
yeah.
and so many of the people go, oh well, I came from oil and gas, so I'm a total supporter.
Yeah.
And I had one guy with a little community solar, which had no means of, I don't know how we got on a call. He debated with me about natural gas. And there are like 2 or 3 other people on the phone from his company, and they or on the Zoom, and they started fading away because he was embarrassing
Just
himself.
going
He knew
off.
nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm proud. I go, hey, listen, if you don't like oil and gas and you don't want to work with someone, then you shouldn't work with me because I'm all of the above.
Yeah,
And
like, it's not me.
I'm really proud of the work we do.
That's awesome,
oil
man.
and gas.
Yeah, no, I want people working with these companies that are proud of oil and gas. So you guys get our stamp of approval for sure.
Well, yeah.
If someone's listening to this show and they're interested in y'all's services, how can they get a hold of y'all? Yep.
So
What's the website?
daviespublicaffairs.com.
All right, daviespublicaffairs.com.
And we're going to go through a whole new rebranding, and because I just want to. And we're changing it to the Davies Group, but it'll be Davies Public Affairs will get you. We're
get you there.
in the first quarter. We're doing a little rebrand.
Awesome.
You know how much fun that is.
Oh, I know.
It's so fun.
It's always
New
so
business
much fun.
cards.
There you
Got to
go.
get some North Face jackets
you
and tell
got-
them we do oil and gas work.
Yeah, for sure. You
see
have
if,
to.
see if they
Put some
reject us.
salt in the wound.
Yeah.
All right. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. Super interesting talk. I think that this is going to resate with a lot of people and
I
companies.
hope so because I just think the people in the industry are. I mean, it's saved America. It's saved the world. I mean, we have this lifestyle that we have, the travel, the heat, the warmth, the food, everything we have is because of energy, and oil and gas is our energy.
Absolutely, man. We'll keep fighting the good fight.
Oh yeah.
Guys, if you like this podcast, share it with a friend. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review if you haven't done that yet. Also, make sure to check out our BDE show at 10:30 Central Time every Tuesday. Me and Chuck Yates are going through energy news, giving our terrible takes and opinions on that. So make sure to check that out. We will catch you guys next week.